A contract can create a promise, but it can never create a heartbeat. When Olivia Bennett signed that 3-month marriage agreement, she believed she was buying survival, not a future, not a feeling. Her gallery was sinking, her dreams were drowning, and a billionaire's absurd proposal looked like a rescue boat. To Alexander, it was just business, a temporary fix to an old man's demand. 2 signatures, 1 paper, and a timeline. Simple, clean, transactional. But love doesn't follow clauses or deadlines. It doesn't recognize fine print. It slips quietly through the cracks of logic and formality. What began as a contract became a collision of 2 worlds, one built on art and emotion, the other on control and calculation. Neither of them realized that when you bind 2 souls, even under false terms, something real can still grow in the spaces between the lines. Olivia never signed up for affection. She signed up for stability, for 3 months of pretending to be a wife in exchange for saving her life's work. But as the days passed, as the rehearsed smiles turned into genuine laughter, and the stage gestures began to feel instinctive, she found herself trapped in something she hadn't planned for: truth. The contract said she owed him time, but her heart started giving him more. Alexander's charm wasn't the kind that swept her off her feet instantly. It was the slow kind, the kind that revealed itself in small moments: a glance across the table, a hand at her back when crowds pressed too close, a late-night conversation about art and ambition. Somewhere between pretending and believing, the paper between them stopped being a barrier and became a bridge. Alexander had built his life on control, schedules, strategy, precision. To him, emotions were inefficiencies, love was vulnerability, and vulnerability was weakness. But Olivia didn't fit into his equations. She challenged his order with her chaos, his silence with her passion, his logic with her faith. For the first time, Alexander couldn't predict the outcome, he could only feel it. The man who thought he could buy peace discovered that peace can't be purchased, it can only be felt. Olivia taught him that control doesn't build connection, surrender does. And in learning to let go, he found something more valuable than power: presence. The contract had brought her into his life, but love rewrote every rule he had lived by. That's the power of love. It transforms transactions into transformations. A contract can outline terms, but it can't measure emotion. It can dictate timelines, but not destiny. Alexander and Olivia's journey reminds us that life's greatest connections often begin as coincidences or compromises. What matters isn't how a story begins, it's how it evolves when truth enters the picture. Love doesn't care about appearances or arrangements. It cares about authenticity. It shows up when we least expect it, in the people we swore we'd never love, and in the moments we thought we were merely surviving. A contract might bind 2 names together, but only love binds 2 hearts in a way that time, status, and circumstance can't undo. So remember this: you can sign a contract with your mind, but love is always written by your soul. Paper may define beginnings, but love defines everything after. The ink fades, the signatures lose meaning, but the emotions remain. That's what happened to Olivia and Alexander. They stepped into a lie and stumbled into truth. They discovered that real connection can't be negotiated, only nurtured. Because love isn't about what you agree to, it's about what you grow into. And when love takes over, even the coldest contracts become warm, human, and alive, rewritten by hearts that refuse to stay bound by terms. Pretending is easy. It protects us, hides our insecurities, and keeps us from facing the truth we're afraid to feel. For Olivia and Alexander, pretending began as survival. They crafted an illusion, a flawless marriage built on a 3-month contract. Every smile was rehearsed, every touch choreographed, every word chosen to keep the illusion alive. They were actors in their own story, performing for a world that loved perfection. But the problem with pretending is that it's exhausting. The heart can only fake for so long before it starts craving something real. And beneath the facade of elegance and control, something unexpected began to bloom: sincerity. The roles they played slowly faded, and the truth began to seep through the cracks of their performance. Olivia had promised herself she would never fall for him. To her, Alexander was a man made of ice, calculated, proud, untouchable. But behind that coldness, she began to see glimpses of humanity. The late nights he spent lost in silence, the way his expression softened when he looked at her, the quiet apologies he never said out loud. Every time she tried to remind herself that it was all fake, her heart whispered otherwise. Because truth doesn't need permission to enter, it sneaks in quietly. In the way your pulse quickens when someone says your name, or how your laughter sounds different when it's genuine. Pretending may build walls, but love has a way of climbing over them without warning. Alexander, too, found himself trapped between performance and reality. He had designed this marriage to control the narrative, to prove to the world and to himself that he didn't need emotion. But Olivia shattered that illusion effortlessly. Her honesty was disarming. Her presence made his silence louder. She didn't try to impress him. She simply was, and that terrified him, because realness was something he had never learned to face. Every time he saw her vulnerability, he felt his own walls weaken. He began to crave the truth he once ran from, the kind that exposes you, humbles you, and changes you. Pretending had protected him from pain, but it had also protected him from peace. And in her company, he discovered that truth might hurt, but it also heals. The walls they built began to crumble, not because they wanted them to, but because truth always finds a way. It seeps through silence, grows through tension, and blooms in the moments no one plans. The dinners meant to impress turned into honest conversations. The staged public appearances turned into shared glances that said everything words couldn't. The contract that was supposed to bind them emotionally apart ended up drawing them emotionally closer. Their lies had set the stage, but their truth wrote the story. That's what pretending never teaches, that real connection doesn't need effort. It only needs honesty, because when you stop performing, you stop protecting yourself from what could actually make you happy. In the end, Olivia and Alexander realized that pretending may give you temporary peace, but truth gives you lasting freedom. You can hide behind masks for a while, but you can't love from behind them. Real love demands exposure of fears, of flaws, of emotions you can't control. It's terrifying, but it's also transformative. Theirs became a story not of pretense, but of awakening, a reminder that you can lie to the world, but not to your own heart. Because truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way to the surface. Pretending builds walls, yes, but truth, unstoppable and pure, will always break through. Pretending is a shield we all use, a mask we wear, when we're afraid to be seen for who we truly are. Olivia and Alexander wore theirs with perfection. To the world, they were a power couple, elegant, composed, enviable. But behind the photographs and polite smiles was an agreement, a 3-month illusion designed to serve a purpose. They weren't in love, they were bound by convenience. Yet, somewhere in the middle of the lies they told everyone else, they began to tell new lies to themselves, that the feelings creeping into their hearts didn't mean anything, that the warmth between them was only part of the act. But pretending has a limit. The more you fake a feeling, the closer you come to revealing what's real. Because truth doesn't fade beneath the weight of pretense. It only waits for the right moment to break free. For Olivia, pretending was protection. She had been hurt, overlooked, and underestimated too many times to risk her heart again. The contract was supposed to be a transaction, a way to save her art gallery, not lose herself. But Alexander's presence slowly started to change the rhythm of her world. He wasn't the man she imagined him to be, the ruthless billionaire with no soul. Beneath the armor of arrogance, she found loneliness. Beneath his confidence, she saw exhaustion. And in the quiet spaces between their staged appearances, she caught glimpses of something real. Every time he listened instead of ordered, every time he defended her when he didn't have to, her walls trembled. The woman who had promised herself not to care began to realize that her heart wasn't following her script anymore. The line between pretending and feeling had blurred beyond recognition. Alexander, too, found himself battling a truth he never planned to face. His life had always been about control, managing outcomes, maintaining power, never showing weakness. The contract marriage was supposed to protect his image, not expose his humanity. But Olivia's sincerity became the one thing he couldn't control. She saw through him, through the charm, the arrogance, the cold exterior. She challenged him in ways no one ever dared to. And while his mind tried to maintain the illusion, his heart started rewriting the story. For the first time, he was vulnerable, not because he wanted to be, but because she made him feel safe enough to be. That's what truth does. It doesn't demand to be accepted. It simply reveals itself until you can't ignore it anymore. As days turned into weeks, the pretense became unbearable. Their rehearsed chemistry became genuine warmth. Their fake laughter turned into real joy. The walls they built with rules and distance began to crumble, not with grand gestures, but with small, quiet truths. A hand held a little too long, a glance that said too much, a silence that felt too full. It wasn't the contract that connected them anymore. It was honesty. They began to discover that pretending keeps people near, but truth keeps hearts close. The moment they stopped playing roles and started being real, their connection transformed from an act into something sacred. Because pretending may create comfort, but only truth creates connection. And that's the paradox of life. The more you hide your heart, the lonelier it becomes. Pretending may protect you for a while, but it also isolates you. Olivia and Alexander learned that truth might be messy, unpredictable, and sometimes painful, but it's also liberating. When you embrace truth, you stop living in fear of being exposed because there's nothing left to hide. Their story is a reminder that love doesn't grow in perfection, it grows in honesty. You can build a wall of lies to protect yourself, but one honest moment can bring it crashing down. Because no matter how strong the walls, how deep the fear, or how convincing the performance, truth always finds a way to break through, and when it does, it sets you free.